Alright guys, this is solving absolute value equations advanced or part 2. A couple of things that you need to remember. You always need to get the absolute value part of the equation by itself. So whatever inside of the two absolute value signs need to be by themselves. So anything over here needs to go and anything over here needs to go. You're always going to have two equations that you need to set up, and you cannot have your absolute value part equal to 0. Okay, that's super important. It can't be equal to 0. So for our first example, we need to get this part here. That needs to be by itself. So in order to get it by itself, we got to move the 7 to the other side before we can set up our two equations. So minus 7 here, minus 7 here. This whole thing is going to come down so that we have the absolute value of p plus 3 plus 0 is equal to 21. Okay, so p plus 3 is equal to 21. Now that this is by itself, you need to check, is it positive? So step 1, you need to solve for the absolute value part of the equation. Step 2, you need to check for the negative on the right side. Okay, so the right cannot be negative. That's a negative sign. And then your third step, you're going to set up your two equations. Okay, so remember you have a positive 1 and a negative 1. So we have p plus 3 is equal to positive 21, and p plus 3 is equal to negative 21. And remember, the only side that changes is the constant on the right of the equal sign. You're not going to change what's inside here, just what's on the outside. And then you solve your two equations. Minus 3 on each side. P is equal to 18. Or p is equal to whatever it is over here. So minus 3 minus 3. P is equal to negative 24. Okay, so two answers there. Same thing here. We have 10 times the absolute value of 5 plus 6b. This is multiplication. So in order to get rid of it, you need to divide. So divide both sides by 10. That's going to go to 1. So you're left with the absolute value of 5 plus 6b is equal to 7. Check that this is negative or it's positive. So we can go ahead and split it off into your positive and negative equations. So we have 5 plus 6b is equal to positive 7, and 5 plus 6b is equal to negative 7. And then you can solve them. We need to get b by itself, so this 5 has to go. Negative 5, or minus 5 I should say, on each side. That's going to go to 0. So you have 0 plus 6b is equal to 2. 6b equals 2. Divide both sides by 6. I'm going to come over here. So that's going to go to 1. So we're left with b is equal to 2 over 6. We can divide both sides by 2. B is equal to 1 over 3. Or b can be whatever it's equal to over here. So the same process, minus 5 on each side. 5 minus 5 is 0. 6b comes down. Negative 7 minus 5 is a negative 12. So you have 6b equals negative 12. Divide both sides by 6. Those 6's are going to go to 1. I'm going to come over here. So we get b is equal to negative 12 over 6. Simplify, b is equal to negative 2. Okay, so we have two answers, b equal to 1/3 or b equal to negative 2. Have a few more examples. Here, again, you guys struggle with these fractions. Remember that the easiest way to get rid of a fraction is to multiply by the denominator. Just because it's equal to 0 does not mean that there's no solution. You still have to do your inverse operations to solve it. So in order to get rid of this 9, we're going to multiply both sides by 9. Here it's going to go to 1. So this absolute values part is going to come down. Negative 5a plus 5 is equal to 0 times 9 is 0. We check that this side is not negative, which it is. So then you can set up your two equations, your positive and your negative. And it's not going to change in this case. You're going to have negative 5a plus 5 is equal to 0. Or negative 5a plus 5 is equal to negative 0, but it doesn't really matter. So we're only going to solve one equation, because you're going to get the same answer either way. So to solve this, minus 5 on each side, that's going to come down. Negative 5a plus 0 is equal to positive 5. Negative 5a equals 5. Okay, we're coming down. Divide both sides by negative 5. A is equal to, remember here guys, positive divided by negative is a negative. Okay, so in this instance, you're only going to have one solution, because 0 is neither positive or negative, so you only have one equation. Over here, you guys need to be careful. A lot of times I'll see you guys add 1 here, but this isn't adding or subtracting. It's negative 1 as your coefficient times that absolute value. So in order to get rid of it, you have to divide by negative 1 on both sides. So those negatives will go to a positive, and you'll have the absolute value of 9x minus 9 is equal to negative 45. Once you get this by itself, you have to check this negative, and it is. Okay, that's a negative number, which is no bueno, and we can't solve it, which means this is no solution. Okay, you cannot have an absolute value equal to a negative number. So here we have one that's a little more complicated, and this is what you're going to see more in your homework and the examples, the stations that we do in class. Remember, when you're solving an equation, you want to work from your outside into the variable. So if we're solving this, what is furthest away from this absolute value? Remember, this needs to be by itself. So what's furthest away from it? Well, this negative 5. Okay, so we need to move that first. Plus 5 on each side. And all of this stuff is going to come down. So you have 8 times the absolute value of 7b minus 10 plus 0 is equal to 27 plus 5 is going to be 32. So 8 times 7b minus 10 is equal to 32. And this plus 0, guys, you don't have to write it. I don't expect to see it from you. I'm just writing it so that you guys can kind of see what's happening and you don't get lost. Here, as we work our way outside into that absolute value, we see that we have an 8 on the outside that's being multiplied. So to get rid of it, we divide both sides. Those are going to go to 1. So we're left with the absolute value of 7b minus 10 is equal to positive 4. Okay, now that this is by itself, we can go ahead and split it up. And I'm just going to come up here and rewrite it so that we have more space. 7b minus 10 is equal to 4. Now you need to be careful with your absolute value signs. A lot of times you guys will get sloppy and you won't, really distinguish that they're absolute value signs, and you'll think that this is, 17b minus 101. Okay, so be careful with your notations. This is positive, so we can set up our two equations, both positive and negative. So we have 7b minus 10 is equal to positive 4. And 7b minus 10 is equal to negative 4. So we can solve each one. Remember, you work your way outside in, so this 10 needs to go. That's going to come down. 7b plus 0 is equal to 14. 7b equals 14. Divide by 7 to solve. That's going to go to 1. B is equal to 2. Or whatever we get over here. So the same process, plus 10, that comes down. 7b plus 0 is equal to positive 6. Negative 4 plus 10. So 7b equals 6. Divide both sides by 7. That goes to 1. B is equal to 6 over 7. Okay, so you can have your two solutions there. All right. That's it for the examples. Again, we'll go over it in more detail tomorrow in class. Here are your practice problems. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me.